I shot a man last week. In the back. I miss it now. It was really interesting. Still, I'm not going to get depressed about it. You have to look to the future. To have something like that under your belt can be quite useful. Well, you never know when you might be called on to repeat the experience. It wasn't in the line of duty. I wasn't a policewoman or someone who takes violence in their stride. It was with a harpoon gun, actually. But it definitely wasn't an accident. My decision to kill was reached only after a visible tussle with my conscience. I had to make it plain that once I'd pulled the trigger, things were never going to be the same again. This was a woman at the crossroads. Well, it wasn't crossroads, of course. Well, they don't shoot people in crossroads. At any rate, not with harpoon guns. If anybody did get shot, it would be with a weapon more suited to the motel ambience. I have been in crossroads, though, actually. Well, I was in an episode involving a fork lunch. At least, they told me it was a fork lunch. The script said it was a finger buffet. I said to the floor manager, I said, Rex, are you on cans? Because I'd like some direction on this point. Are we toying or are we tucking in? He said, forget it. We're losing the food anyway. I was playing Woman in a Musquash Coat, a guest at a wedding reception, and I was scheduled just to be in that one episode. However, in my performance, I tried to suggest I'd taken a fancy to the hotel in the hope I might catch the director's eye and he'd have me back after the fork lunch for the following episode, which was to involve a full-blown weekend. So, I acted an interest in the soft furnishings, running my fingers over the formica, admiring the carpet on the walls. Only Rex came over to say they'd put me in a musquash coat to suggest I was a sophisticated woman. Could I try and look a little more at home in a 3-star motel? Well, I wasn't at home in that sort of motel, I can tell you. I said to the man I'd been put next to, whom I took to be my husband, I said, curtains in orange nylon and no placemats. Well, there's not even the veneer of civilization. He said, don't talk to me about orange nylon. I was on a jury once that sentenced Richard Attenborough to death. We'd been told to indulge in simulated cocktail chit-chat, so we weren't being unprofessional, talking. That's one thing I pride myself on, actually. I am professional to my fingertips. Whatever it is I'm doing, even if it's just a walk-on, I must get involved, right up to the hilt. Well, I can't help it. People who know me tell me I'm a very serious person. Only, it's funny, I never get to do serious parts. The parts I get offered tend to be fun-loving girls who take life as it comes and aren't afraid of a good time should the opportunity arise type thing. I'd call them vivacious, if it didn't carry overtones of the outdoor life. In a nutshell, I play the kind of girl who's very much at home on a bar stool and who seldom has to light her own cigarette. That couldn't be more different than me, because, for a start, I'm not a smoker. I mean, I can smoke if the part requires. I'm a professional, and you need as many strings to your bow as you can in this game. But, having said that, well, I'm not a natural smoker. And what's more, I surprised my friends by not being much of a party-goer either. Rather curl up with a good book, quite frankly. However, this particular party, I made an exception. Thing was, I'd met this ex-graphic designer, and he was quitting the rat race and going off to Zimbabwe, and he was having a little farewell-do in the flat of an air hostess friend of his in Mitcham. Would I go? I thought, well, it's not every day you get somebody going off to Zimbabwe. So I said yes. And I'm glad I did, because that is how I got the audition. Now, my hobby is people. I collect people. So, when I see this interesting-looking man in the corner, next thing is I find myself talking to him. I said, "You look an interesting person." "Well, I'm interested in interesting people." "Hello?" He said, "Hello." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm in film." I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Anything in the pipeline?" He said, "As a matter of fact, yeah," and starts telling me about this project he's involved in, making videos for the overseas market, targeted chiefly on West Germany. I said, "Are you the producer?" He said, "No, but I'm on the production side." "The name's Spud?" I said, "Spud? That's an interesting name." "Mine's Leslie." He said, "As it happens, Leslie, well, we've got a problem at the moment. Our main girl's had to drop out, her back's packed in. Are you an actress?" I said, "It's interesting you should ask, because as a matter of fact, Spud, I am." He said, "Will you excuse me one moment, Leslie?" I said, "Why? Spud, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to go away, Leslie, and make one phone call." It transpires the director is seeing possible replacements the very next day at an address in West London. Spud said, "It's interesting because I'm based in Ealing." I said, "Isn't that West London?" He said, "It is." "Where's your stamping ground?" I said, "Bromley, for my sins." He said, "That's a farish cry. Why not bed down at my place?" I said, "Thank you, kind sir, but I didn't fall off the Christmas tree yesterday." He said, "Leslie, I've got a son studying hotel management and a daughter with one kidney. Besides, I've got my sister-in-law staying. She's come up for the Ideal Home exhibition." The penny began to drop when I saw the tattoo. My experience of tattoos is that they're generally confined to the lower echelons. And when I saw his vest, it had electrician written all over it. I never even saw the sister-in-law. Still traipsing around Olympia. Probably. I know something about personality. Well, there's a chapter on it in this book I'm reading. It's by an American. They're the experts when it comes to personality, the Americans. They've got it down to a fine art. It makes a big thing of interviews, so I was able to test it out. The director's not very old. Blue suit, tie loose, sleeves turned back. I put him down as a university type. Said his name was Simon, which I instantly committed to memory. Well, that's one of the points of the book. Purpose and use of name. He said, "Forgive this crazy time." I said, "I'm sorry, Simon?" He said, "Like 9:30 in the morning." I said, "Simon, the day begins when the day begins. You're the director." He said, "Yeah." "Well, can you tell me what you've done?" I said, "Where you may have seen me, Simon, is in Tess, Roman Polanski. I played Chloe." "I don't remember her," he said. "Is she in the book?" I said, "Book? Simon, this is Tess, Roman Polanski. Chloe was the one on the back of the farm cart wearing the shawl. The shawl was original 19th century embroidery, all hand done. Do you know Roman, Simon?" "Not personally, no," he said. I said, "Physically, he's quite small." But we had a very good working relationship. Very open. He said that was good because Travis in the film was very open. I said, Travis? Well, that's an interesting name. He said, yeah, she's an interesting character. Well, she spends most of the film on the deck of a yacht. I said, yacht? Now that is interesting, Simon. My brother-in-law has a small powerboat berthed at Ipswich. He said, well, snap. I said, yes, small world. He said, in an ideal world, Leslie, I'd be happy to sit here chatting all day, but I'm on a pretty tight schedule. And although I know it is only 9:30 in the morning, could I see you in your bra and panties? I said, 9:30 in the morning, 10:30 at night. Well, I'm a professional, Simon. Only, could we just put another bar on? Because if we don't, you won't be able to tell my tits from goose pimples. He had to smile. Well, that's another of the points in the personality book. Humour. Usefulness of in breaking the ice. When I got my things off, he said, well, you've passed the physical, now the oral. Do you play chess? I said, chess? Do you mean the musical, Simon? He said, no, the game. I said, oh, as a matter of fact, Simon, I don't. Is that a problem? He said, no, not if you water ski. Travis is fundamentally an outdoor girl, but we thought it might be fun to make her an intellectual. On the side. I said, well, Simon, while I am happy to learn both chess and water skiing, might I make one suggestion? Reading generally indicates a studious frame of mind, and I'm a very convincing reader, I said, because it's something I frequently do in real life. Well, I could tell he was impressed. So I said, another suggestion I might make would be to kit Travis out with some glasses. Spectacles, Simon. These days they're not unbecoming. And if you put Travis in glasses with something in paperback, well, that says it all, really. He said, you've been very helpful. I said the paperback could be something on the environment. Or, if you wanted to maintain the water skiing theme, something on water skiing. And the environment, possibly. I mean, Lake Windermere. He was showing me out by this time. Only I said, one last thought, Simon, and that is a briefcase. Well, put Travis in a bikini and give her a briefcase, and you have got the best of every possible world. He said, I'm most grateful. You've given me a lot of ideas. I said goodbye, Simon. I hope we can work together. Now, the drill for saying goodbye is you take the person's hand, then put your other hand over the top, clasp it warmly, while at the same time looking into their eyes, smiling and reiterating their name. This lodges you in their mind, apparently. So I did all that. Only going downstairs, I had another idea. So I popped back. He was on the phone. You won't believe this, he was saying. I said, Simon, don't hang up. Only I wanted to make it crystal clear that when I said briefcase, well, I didn't mean one of the old-fashioned type ones. There are new briefcases now that open up and turn into a mini writing desk. Being an up-to-the-minute girl, that is probably the sort of briefcase Travis would have. She could be sat in a wet bikini, briefcase open on her knee. I've never seen that on screen before. So it would be some kind of first. Ciao, Simon. Take care. That was last Friday. The book's got charts where you can check your interview score. Well, mine was 75. Very good to excellent. Actually, I'm surprised they haven't telephoned. You'd never think this frock wasn't made for me. I said to Scott, whose wardrobe, she must be my double. He said, no, you're hers, the stupid cow. Talk about last minute, though. 11 o'clock on Tuesday night. I'm just wondering about having a run around with the dustette. 6 o'clock next morning, I'm sitting in Leon Solent in makeup. When the phone went telling me I'd got the part, I assumed it was Simon. So I said, hello, Simon. He said, try Nigel. I said, well, Nigel, can you tell Simon I haven't let the grass grow under my feet? I now play a rudimentary game of chess. He said, I don't care if you play a championship game of ice hockey, just don't get pregnant. It transpires the girl they'd slated for the part had been living with a racing driver. And, of course, the inevitable happened. Kiddie on the way. So my name was next out of the hat. I said to Scott, I know why. They knew I had ideas about the part. He said they knew you had a 38-inch bust. His mother's confined to a wheelchair. He's got a lot on his plate. Anyway, I'm ready. I've been ready since yesterday morning. It was long enough before anyone came near. I had a bacon sandwich, which Scott went and fetched for me while I was under the dryer. I said, wasn't there a croissant? He said, in Leon Solent. On Tess, there were croissants. On Tess, there was filter coffee. Well, there was also some liaison. I wanted to talk to somebody about the part. Only Scott said they were out in the speedboat doing mute shots of the coastline. On Tess, you were never sitting around. Roman anticipated every eventuality. We filmed in the middle of a forest once, and the toilet arrangements were immaculate. Well, there was even provision for a calorie-controlled diet. I said to Scott, I'm not used to working like this. He said, let's face it, dear, you're not used to working. Why didn't you bring your knitting? I said, I do not knit, Scott. He said, well, file your nails then, pluck an eyebrow. Be like me, do something constructive. He's as thin as a rail and apparently an accomplished pianist. He seems to be makeup as well as wardrobe. On Tess, we had 3 caravans for makeup alone. Eventually, Simon puts his head round the door. I said, hello, Simon. I said, long time no see. Did Nigel tell you I've learned chess? He said, chess? Aren't you the one that can water ski? I said, no. He said, bugger, and disappeared. I said to Scott, Simon's a bit on the young side for a director, isn't he? He said, director? He couldn't direct you to the end of the street. He just does all the running around. I said, who is the director? He said, Günther. I said, Günther? That sounds a continental type name. He said, yes, German. I said, that's interesting. Well, I went to Germany once, Dusseldorf. He said, well, you'll have a lot to talk about then, won't you? I have a feeling Scott might be gay. Well, normally I like them. Only I think he's one of the ones it's turned bitter. Anyway, I'm still sitting there hours later when this other young fellow comes in. I said, Günther. He said, Nigel. I said, we spoke on the phone. He said, yes, I've just been told you don't water ski. I said, Nigel, I could learn. Well, I picked up the skateboard in about 5 minutes. He said, precious, 5 minutes is what we do not have. I don't suppose there's any chance you've got fluent French? I said, no. Why? He said they'd wondered about making her French. I said, Nigel, how can she be French when she's called Travis? Travis isn't a French name. He said the name isn't important. I said, it is to me. It's all I've got to build on. He said, I'll get back to you. I said, Nigel, I don't have French, but what I do have is a smattering of Spanish. The legacy of several non-package type holidays to the Costa del Sol. Could Travis be half Spanish? He said to Scott, "We wanted someone with fluent French who can water ski. What have we got? Someone with pidgin Spanish who plays chess." Scott said, "Well, don't talk to me. I started off a landscape gardener." I'm still sitting there in the afternoon, which is when they did the water skiing. Some girl from the local sub-aqua did it. She works part-time at the quayside restaurant where they all had dinner last night. I saw her when she came in for makeup. Pleasant. Enough. She didn't look a thing like me. Well, I'm quite petite, only she was a bit on the large side, and whereas my hair is auburn, hers was definitely ginger. I didn't say anything at the time, only I thought, well, if she's supposed to be me, they'll be into big continuity issues. So I went off in quest of the director to tell him. Nobody about on the yacht, except this one man who's dusting the camera. He said not to worry, the shot was POV water skis, so you'd only be able to see my elbow. I said, "Will that work?" He said, "Oh yeah, you know, cinema, the magic of." Mind you, he said, if it were up to him personally, he'd rather see my elbow over hers any day. Said his name was Terry. What was mine? I said, "It's a relief to find someone civil, Terry." He said, "Oh, it's the usual story, Leslie. Art comes in at the door, manners go out of the window." Hey, why is making a film like being a mushroom? I said, "Why, Terry?" He said, "They keep you in the dark, and every now and again someone comes in and throws a bucket of shit over you." He laughed. I said, "Well, that's interesting. Only, Terry, they don't grow mushrooms like that anymore. It's all industrialised these days." He said, "You sound a cultured sort of person. What say we spend the evening exploring the delights of Leon Solent?" His room's nicer than mine. His bathroom's got a hairdryer. Please don't misunderstand me. I have no objection to taking my top off. But Travis, as I was playing her, wasn't the sort of person who would take her top off. I said, "I'm a professional, Nigel. Credit me with a little experience. It isn't Travis." I'd been sat on the deck of the yacht all day as background, while these two older men had what I presumed was a business discussion. One of them, who was covered in hair and had a real weight problem, was my boyfriend, apparently. You knew he was my boyfriend because at an earlier juncture you'd seen him hit me across the face. Travis is supposed to be a good time girl, only you never actually see me having a good time, just sat on this freezing cold deck, plastering on the suntan lotion. I said to Nigel, "I don't know whether the cameraman spotted it, Nigel, but would I be sunbathing?" "Well, there's no sun." He said, "No sun is favourite." Nigel's first assistant here, there and everywhere. Well, Gunter never speaks. Not to me, anyway. Just stands behind his camera with a little cap on. Not a patch on Roman. Roman had a smile for everybody. Anyway, I'm sitting there as background, and I say to Nigel, "Nigel, would I be right in thinking I'm a denizen of the cocktail cocktail belt. He said, why? A bit guardedly. I said, because to me, Nigel, that implies a cigarette holder. And I produced quite a modest one I happened to have brought with me. He went and checked with Gunter, only Gunter ruled there was to be no smoking. I said, on grounds of health? He said, no, on grounds of it making continuity a bugger. I also happened to have brought a paperback with me, just to make it easier for props, which seemed to be Scott. Again. Only I'd hardly got it open when Nigel relieved me of it and said they were going for the suntan lotion. I said, Nigel, I don't think the two are incompatible. Well, I can apply suntan lotion and read at the same time. That is what professionalism means. He went and checked with Gunter, came back and said, forget the book. Suntan lotion is favourite. I said, can I ask you something else? He said, go on. I said, what is my boyfriend discussing? He said, business. I said, Nigel, would I be right in thinking it's some kind of a drugs deal? He said, does it matter? I said, it matters to me. Well, it matters to Travis. It helps my character. He said, listen, what would help your character is if you took your bikini top off. I said, Nigel, would Travis do that? I said, we know Travis reads. She also plays chess. Would Travis be the type to go topless? He said, who do you think you're playing? Emily Bronte. Gunter wants to see your knockers. I didn't even look at him. Just took my top off without a word and applied suntan lotion with all the contempt I could muster. They did the shot. Then Nigel came over and said, Gunter liked that. And if I could do it again, with just a whisker more sensuality, it might be worth a close-up. So, we did the shot again. And Nigel came over and said, Gunter was liking what I was giving them. And in this next shot, could I just slip off my bikini bottom? I said, Nigel, trust me. Travis would not do that. Speaks to Gunter, comes back, says Gunter agrees with me. The real Travis wouldn't, but by displaying herself naked in front of her boyfriend's business associate, she is showing her contempt for his whole way of life. I said, Nigel, at last Gunter is giving me something I can relate to. He said, right, let's shoot it. Elbow the bikini bottom. We wrapped around 6. That's film parlance for packed up. I said to Nigel, did I give Gunter what he wanted? Is he happy? Nigel said, Gunter is an artist, Leslie. He's never happy. But, as he said this afternoon, at last we're cooking with gas. I said, does that mean it's good? He said, yeah. I said, oh, because I prefer electricity. When we got back to the hotel, it took me some time to unwind. Well, I'd become so identified with Travis. It was only after I'd had a bath and freshened up that I felt her loosening her hold on me. I was looking forward to relaxing with the crew, swapping anecdotes of the day's shooting, in the knowledge of a day's work well done. Only when I got downstairs, there was nobody around. Just Scott and one of the drivers. It turns out they'd all gone off for supper at the restaurant run by that fat girl who did the water skiing. I went and sat in the bar. Just one fellow in there. I said, my hobby is people. What do you do? Lo and behold, he's on the film too. The animal handler. Kenny. In charge of the cat. I said, oh, that's interesting, Kenny. I didn't know there was going to be a cat. I love cats. I love dogs too. But I love cats. He said, would you care to see her? She's asleep on my bed. I said, that's a coincidence. He said, Leslie, don't run away with that idea. I am wedded to my small charges. So, I go up and pal on with the cat a bit, and Kelly tells me about all the animals he's handled. A zebra, once. A seal. An alligator. An umpteen ferrets. He's also got a trout there, too. In a tank. It was going to be caught later on in the film. Quite small. Only they were going to shoot it in close up, so it would look bigger. I sat on the bed and listened to him talk about animal behaviour. I said, Kenny, well, this is the kind of evening I enjoy. Two people just talking about something interesting. I woke up in the night and I couldn't remember where I was. Then I saw the cat sitting there, watching the trout. When you've finished a shot on a film, you have to wait and see whether there's what they call a hair in the gate. It's film parlance for the all clear. Thank God there wasn't, because I couldn't have done it again. I created Travis, and though it was her lover who got shot, well, I felt it was something in me that was Travis that had died. My lover's name turned out to be Alfredo. That was my big line. Alfredo! He was the head of some sort of crime syndicate, only everybody in the yachting fraternity thought he was very respectable and to do with the business trade. Anyway, one night, while Travis and Alfredo are ashore at a business federation dinner and dance, this young undercover policeman swims out to the yacht to search it in his underpants. However, as luck would have it, Travis has a headache, and so she and Alfredo return early from this ultra-respectable function, with Alfredo in a towering rage. Originally, I was down to say, well, I can't help it, Alfredo. I have a headache. And we tried it once or twice. Only then Gunther thought it would be more convincing if my headache was so bad I couldn't actually speak. And Alfredo just said, you and your headaches. I said, if it's a migraine rather than a headache Travis had, I probably wouldn't be able to speak. Gunther said, whatever you say. It's wonderful, that moment, when you feel a director first begin to trust you. And you can really start to build. Anyway, Travis and Alfredo come into the cabin and they find this undercover policeman behind the sofa in his underpants. And Alfredo takes out his gun and says, our lucky, lovely Travis had a headache and we had to return early from our glittering reception. I was cross with her before, but now my mood has changed. Offer the gentleman a drink, Travis. Then go and take your clothes off. There is nothing I like more than making love after killing a policeman. I then retire to the next cabin, while Alfredo taunts this poor young policeman, tells him he's going to kill him. But before he does so, he tells him in every detail about his drugs smuggling operation, the way criminals tend to do the moment they've got somebody at gunpoint. When Travis comes back with no clothes on, the young policeman is talking about the evil drugs do, all the young lives ruined, and so on. Only, I forgot to mention that earlier on there'd been some dialogue, while I was supposed to be snorkelling, about how Travis had a little brother, Craig, and how he'd got hooked on drugs, and how I was heartbroken and determined to revenge myself on the culprits should I ever come across them. So, while the policeman is saying all this about the horror of drugs, you can see it comes as a revelation to Travis. She thinks her lover's just been involved in ordinary crime, stealing electrical goods and so on. Anyway, very quietly, almost pensively, Gunter says, Travis picks up an underwater spear gun that just happens to be on the sideboard. Nigel came over to say that at this point, ideally, Gunter would like to see a variety of emotions chase themselves across Travis's face, as her affection for her lover, Alfredo, fights with the demands of her conscience and the memories of her little brother, Craig. You see my lover's fat finger tighten on the trigger as he gets ready to shoot the young policeman. Only then I say his name very quietly. Alfredo. He spins round. Travis fires the harpoon and you see the spear going into his back, killing him and also ruining his dinner jacket. They then follow this with a big close-up with blood and everything. And me, standing there, a single tear rolling down my cheek. We did this all in one take, which Nigel said was almost unique in the annals of filming. Only Scott has to chip in and say good job, because only having one dinner jacket was also fairly unique. I couldn't have done it again anyway. I'd got nothing left. Except, suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration. The way you do when you've been to the end of the world and back. And I said to Nigel, don't you think that Travis, drained of all emotion by the death of her lover, would perhaps cling on to this young policeman whose life she has saved, and that they would celebrate his deliverance by having sexual intercourse there and then? Big debate. Gunter really liked it. Only the actor playing the policeman wasn't so keen. I think he may have been gay too. He had a moustache. Eventually, Nigel comes over to say that favourite is for the young policeman to look as if he is considering sexual intercourse, and for him to run his hands speculatively over Travis's private parts. Only then, pity drives out lust, and he covers up her nakedness with an oriental-type dressing gown, the property of her dead lover, Alfredo. Though, even at this late juncture, you can see he's not entirely ruled out the possibility, because as he's fastening the dressing gown, his fingers linger over Travis's nipples. Afterwards, Gunter told me that, well, had there been any proper funny business at this point, it would have detracted from the final scene, in which, after all the excitement, the young undercover policeman returns home to his regular girlfriend, who makes him a hot snack, and who's a librarian. And the final scene is of the two of them making love. The message being that sexual intercourse is better with someone you're in love with, even if they're quite homely, and work in a county library, rather than someone like Travis, who's just after a good time. That night, Gunter said to me, it's quite a moral film. Only the tragedy is people won't see it. I said to him, that's interesting, Gunter, because I saw it that way right from the start. When we were in bed, I said, I wish we could have done this before. He said, Leslie, I make it a rule never to lay a finger on an actress until the whole thing's in the can. I said, Günther, well, there's no need to explain. We're both professionals. But Günther, I said, can I ask you one question? Was I, Travis? Were you pleased with my performance? He said, Leslie, if someone is a bad actress, then I can't sleep with her. So don't ask me if I was pleased with your performance. This is the proof. He's a real artist, is Günther. I woke up the next morning and he'd gone. I wandered down for some coffee, only there was nobody from the unit around. I'd wanted to say goodbye to everybody, but it turns out they were off doing establishing shots of the marina. So I bought a card with a sinking ship on it and put, goodbye, gang. See you at the premiere. I left it at the desk. As I came out with my bags, Scott was there, loading the laundry. I said, ciao, Scott. It's been a real pleasure working with you. He said, you win some, you lose some. I said, back to real life now. He said, some of us never left. It is funny the way their clothes are always too small. The film's coming out in West Germany initially, then Turkey, possibly. Günther says it'll make me quite famous. Well, I suppose I shall just have to live with that. Only, I'm not just going to sit here and wait for the phone to ring. No fear. I'm going to acquire a new skill. Spoken Italian. Selling valuable oil paintings. Canoeing. You see, the more you have to offer as a person, the better you are as an actress. Acting is really just giving.